Welcome to Ball Spit Analytics, where we spit on balls. Actually, welcome to Ball Spit Analytics, where we spitball knowledge. Your co-host Dylan, my other host John, is going to be making content today. Actually, so y'all see some stuff from him. But today, I'm going to go over the SEC football teams that I think will improve the most from their previous season in 2024. So I have three teams I'm going to talk about today. These are teams that I think will have a better record or just overall improve from what they did last year. All right, so we're going to start off with Oklahoma. I'm starting with Oklahoma because I think they'll improve, but I don't know if they'll improve as much as the rest of the teams that I'm going to talk about. So with Oklahoma, they had a 6-7 record last year. They lost to Navy in their bowl game, and so to start off, I'm going to talk about John Mateer, the transfer quarterback from Wazoo, who had an electric year last year. Um, he was a very sought out transfer quarterback for most teams like Auburn and stuff, but he ended up choosing to go to Oklahoma. Last year, he put up 3,139 yards, 29 touchdowns, and he had 7 interceptions. The only flaw in that situation is he has 7 interceptions. They had turnover issues with Jackson Arnold, so hopefully Brent Venables can change that up for him and make him, keep the ball safe a little bit better. He also completed over 60% of his passes, which is key for them with them bringing back in a healthy receiving core because last year they couldn't keep their receiving core healthy. So this year, I think that will coincide together with a healthy John Mateer and a healthy receiving core. And then a quarterback that also, he's also a very experienced quarterback. He's 21 years old. He's a little old, but I think an experienced quarterback with a young team like that's just trying to get healthy, I think that will really help them out. They also have 59% of their roster returning, which is huge because it's about 60%, which is over half their roster. And so that's pretty big. I think I want to touch on the healthy roster part a little more. So I think the key for them last year that a lot of people talked about is they did not have a healthy roster. They could not stay healthy. They had at one point 11 receivers on their depth chart out, which is you can't win games like that. Even though they beat Auburn with that depth chart, I remember watching that game and they had all their starting receivers out and they still pulled off a win. But I think with them bringing in a healthy roster and having John Mateer, an experienced quarterback from Wazoo, I think that will really help them out. They also have Jaden Ott from California coming in. He didn't put up a whole lot of stats last year, but he showed a lot of flashes of what he can be. So I think that will match pretty well. I think he'll help them with the run game. Oklahoma fans also R. Mason Thomas, who had 9 sacks last year. That's pretty crazy. 9 sacks is a lot of sacks, and I think this year he'll probably get more. So I think your defense is going to look. I think the defense is looking pretty good. And I really like John Mateer. I think him coming from Washington State will really help them out. And then to look into their schedule a little bit, you open with Illinois State. I think that's an easy win. I don't think any issues with that. You have Michigan at home. Michigan at home is a key. That's a key game for Oklahoma to really show where you're at. I think with Bryce Underwood being a true freshman, and I think he's starting. He should be starting. I think that's going to be a huge test. That's like his first big road test. So you could get a really good win against Michigan there at home, week 2. And then, honestly, the only games on this schedule that I think are not as winnable or games that'll be a little difficult is you got obviously Red River rivalry against Texas. Texas, we obviously don't know what they're going to be like with Arch Manning finally getting the role of the offense to be the starting quarterback. You got to go to Alabama. That's a tough game. You got to go to Rocky Top. That's a tough game. But also, the thing with Tennessee is Tennessee lost Nico. Nico, your starting quarterback. They're still struggling. I think Tennessee's going to have a bit of a down year, so I think that could be a good win. I think they can get that win. I think all these games are really winnable. It's just obviously what their offense is going to be because offense is what they struggled with last year. So I'm going to give them. I'm gonna give a ballpark. I think they'll get at least. I think 7-5, 8-4. I think is a good ballpark for Oklahoma. I think they'll definitely improve from last year, from 6-7, just because of John Mateer. I think he brings a lot to the table for them, and then having a lot of your starters come back, a healthy defense, a healthy receiving core. You obviously got Jaden Ott coming in. I think that can really help. So let's get into the next team. The next team we're going to talk about the Florida Gators. I really do think they're going to improve from last year, so I'm going to get into them. Last year they were 8-5. They won their bowl game against Tulane, so I think that's going to be a huge step up. Um, because last year they started off really rough. They lost a lot of games. They lost a big game against Miami. If y'all can remember that, that was a pretty ugly showing. Obviously, Graham Mertz got injured early, and then you had to put the freshman DJ Lagway in a really tough situation with a very tough schedule. They had a top five toughest schedules in the country, which was tough. And so this year, I think they're going to improve off of what they started towards the end of the year last year. They started to win a lot of games, key wins. So LSU, you beat a ranked Ole Miss at home. You obviously went to FSU and got that dub, and then you beat Tulane in the bowl game. So I think they're going to build off of that because Billy Napier was on the hot seat last year and he improved a lot. So I think them going 7-5 in the regular season and getting that bowl win was pretty huge. And so this year, I really do think that this is going to be a dangerous Florida team. They have 13 returning starters, which have DJ Lagway coming back. Last year, he battled a few injuries. He obviously is a five-star quarterback coming in. And I think the thing with DJ Lagway that I really like is he was obviously a five-star quarterback, but he's a dual threat. He can run, he can pass, he can do the RPO, he can do pretty much anything. It's just last year he turned the ball over a little bit. He had 9 interceptions, but obviously when you're battling injuries and you're thrown into a SEC schedule, and obviously they had a very tough non-conference schedule, it's a tough environment to adapt to. So I think this year with him having that experience under his belt, and if he can stay healthy, I think that's huge for Florida. And then you got some key players. You got Dallas Wilson, who's a four-star. I think he'll be a pretty good player. You got Eugene Wilson, who was a freshman last year, who had 19 receptions on 266 yards, which was a 14-yard average per catch, which I think for a freshman last year who didn't play a lot, I think that's huge. So I think he can be a key part for DJ Lagway to have that sophomore who had a little bit of experience last year come in and be that guy for him. So I think that's huge for them. You also have 65% of your defense returning, which is huge. I think having a good percent of your defense coming back is huge with the chemistry, because chemistry is a huge thing. If they can build off of that, I think that can work for them. But to talk about DJ Lagway a little bit more and how I think he can, I think DJ Lagway, in my opinion, is the key to this team. I really think DJ Lagway, if he plays to the level everyone says he will be in New York for the Heisman conversation. He will be on the boards next year for the draft. He obviously can't go this year, but for building off for the 2026 season, I think that's huge for them. And so I think I think it's going to be a good year for Florida this year. I'm seeing 9 to 10 wins, but to get in their schedule, I think some of your tougher games for them. I mean, you got to go to Baton Rouge, you got to go to Miami, you got to go to Kyle Field, but you get key games at home, like Florida State. You get Florida State at home, you get Tennessee at home, you get Texas at home, and so I think. Oh, and then obviously you have Georgia versus Florida in Jacksonville. I think that's a very winnable game because we obviously don't know what Georgia's going to look like. This is looking like a down year, so I believe 9-3, 10-2 is a good bench up from what they were last year, and can really set Billy Napier as the coach at Florida. So let's get into the next team. All right, and so now we're going to talk about the last team that I have on my list, and that's the Auburn Tigers. I am an Auburn fan, but I am an unbiased analyst on this page, and so I'm going to talk about them. But I also think I can give a little more insight off of them being a fan. So Auburn last year was 5-7, didn't make a bowl game. They lost a lot of key games towards the end of their game in the fourth quarter, whether it was to Oklahoma off that pick six, Missouri on a game-winning drive, and then obviously the struggles to like Vanderbilt, all the 4 interceptions from Peyton Thorne against Cal. I think that really hurt them a lot last year, which was mainly, I think, a quarterback sort of situation because Hugh Freeze, I don't really think he put a lot into Peyton Thorne, but I don't think Peyton Thorne was really their guy. I don't think he fit the offense. And so then to talk about my first point, you bring in Jackson Arnold, a 5-star quarterback who showed some flurries at Oklahoma, like last year, the game against Alabama. He showed a lot of promise in that, but also he didn't have a healthy roster. So you bring in a guy that hasn't really he has experience, but he obviously hasn't had the team around him to support him. And so I think this year you bring him in and you have people around him like Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, and then Eric Singleton coming in from Georgia Tech, who put up 754 yards and he averaged about 13 and a half a catch, which I think is a very big threat for them. I think that could be sort of like a Keandre Lambert-Smith situation for them. I think if you build off of him a little bit, I think that'll take some stress off some of the younger guys since he is an experienced receiver. So I think look out for that. That could be a really big connection. And then the talk about the defense, you got Keldrick Falk, who is in some projections as the first overall pick in the draft. He's in like that sort of top 5 projection. He's going to come in. Hopefully, they can get him going. He had a really good year last year, and so I think having him. And then obviously, the defense was a little banged up on your secondary. You had like Champ Anthony, who's a corner who was banged up, got injured in the Arkansas game. I think getting him back is going to be pretty good for them. And then like Jay Crawford, you have him out there, and so I think this team is really young. It can show a lot of promise, and I think having some experienced veterans around like Eric Singleton, I want to say Jackson Arnold's an experienced guy, but because he had that year last year, but I think that can really coincide together. And then having a dual threat quarterback like Arnold, which was the one thing I didn't get into, is how he can bring you that dual threat with his legs because he's a little more athletic than Peyton Thorne. So I think that's huge for them. And then to get into their schedule, the main thing that I want to circle on the schedule is the fact that you have your two biggest rivals at home. You have Georgia and Alabama at home. And so having those two big games at home is a huge, huge part for them because those are obviously your two biggest rivals and they have not beat them in over 5 years. You haven't beat Alabama since 2019 and you haven't beat Georgia since 2017. So having those two games at home with this roster that's on paper the biggest and best roster since 2019 and 2017. And then some games that are really going to be interesting is obviously you got Baylor week one on a Friday night in Waco. So that's going to be a tough game for them. That'll really tell us where we're at. And so I'd see 9-3. I honestly see 9-3, 8-4 with Auburn. They have a high ceiling and they have a low floor. So that is my 3 teams I think will be most improved in the SEC. Put your 3 in the comment section below. If you have anything to add on some teams that you think I missed, put in the comment section below. Make sure you follow our Instagram or TikTok and look out for our podcast because we're about to have podcasts out. And always, to know ball, you got to learn ball.